Have you ever noticed how some families pass down homes, businesses, and savings, while others struggle just to get by? This isn't just about working hard, it's also about history. There's a hidden part of America's past that still affects millions of people today. It's called redlining. Let's travel back in time to understand how it began and how it shaped wealth in America. After slavery and Reconstruction, Jim Crow laws were established. With that came segregation. It forced black people to live together in a particular part of town, the areas that were eventually identified as redlined because they were not allowed to live among the white people. During the Great Depression, widespread unemployment and financial hardship affected many Americans. The 1930s were a hard time for many people. The Great Depression had left people out of work and out of money. To help, the U.S. government established the Federal Housing Administration, FHA, in 1934 to address the housing crisis. The FHA aimed to increase homeownership by facilitating mortgage loans from banks. It ensured mortgages reduced the risk to lenders, encouraging them to offer loans to a broader range of borrowers. The FHA was created to help more people buy homes by providing and insuring mortgages. By insuring mortgages, it reduced the risk for lenders, encouraging them to offer loans to a wider range of potential buyers. This intervention aimed to stabilize the housing market and stimulate the economy. But there was a catch. To assess loan risk, the government instructed banks to evaluate neighborhoods. The neighborhoods were categorized based on perceived risk factors. These factors were visually represented on color-coded maps. The maps used color codes to designate mortgage lending risk levels within urban areas. Green zones indicated best areas. Blue zones were considered still desirable for investment. Yellow zones were labeled declining, while red zones were deemed hazardous and ineligible for loans. These color-coded classifications directly determined mortgage loan eligibility for residents. Neighborhoods with predominantly black residents and other people of color were systematically marked in red. As I mentioned earlier, black people were forced to live in this area because of Jim Crow. This discriminatory practice occurred regardless of residents' financial stability or property upkeep. Redlining systematically denied mortgage loans to residents in these marked neighborhoods. This denial of loans created significant barriers to homeownership and wealth accumulation. Redlining is a discriminatory practice involving the denial of loans or services to residents of specific neighborhood. These practices are often based on race or ethnicity, creating barriers to homeownership. This discriminatory practice has historically marginalized specific communities, limiting their access to financial resources. Not only does it have a history of discriminating against specific communities, that practice is still going on today. After the Great Depression and following World War II, the U.S. experienced a substantial housing boom. The government provided assistance to veterans through programs like the GI Bill. This assistance facilitated rapid suburban development. Although this program was meant for all, black veterans were frequently denied loan opportunities available to white veterans. Redlining and other discriminatory practices contributed to loan denial disparities because blacks were not approved to live in the same neighborhoods as whites. Systemic discrimination, limited access to housing and economic advancement for black veterans. Racial covenants, written into property deeds, legally restricted black families from buying homes in specific areas. These covenants reinforced segregation by preventing black families from accessing housing in newly developed suburban neighborhoods. Racial covenants were a legal tool used to maintain racial unity and exclude black residents from certain communities. Homeownership has historically enabled wealth accumulation for families. Rising property values contribute to wealth building through homeownership. Homeownership facilitates the transfer of assets to future generations. Discriminatory housing policies historically prevented black families from accessing homeownership. Exclusion from homeownership limited black families' ability to accumulate wealth through property value appreciation. This disparity in wealth accumulation has had lasting generational impacts on black families. Generational wealth refers to assets accumulated over time that are passed down from one generation to the next. These assets include homes, investments, and savings. Generational wealth provides financial security and opportunities for future generations. Redlining and housing discrimination have significantly contributed to the wealth gap between black and white families. These discriminatory practices limit opportunities for wealth creation and transfer within affected communities. The legacy of redlining continues to impact property values and access to resources in historically redlined areas. The Fair Housing Act of 1968 outlawed discrimination in housing. The act aimed to address injustices caused by redlining. The Fair Housing Act promotes equal housing opportunities. It was a crucial step, but did not fully rectify decades of accumulated disadvantages experienced by Black families. Redlining created decades of accumulated disadvantages for Black families. So the Fair Housing Act was a crucial step. Significant disparities in homeownership rates persist between Black and white families. According to a poll in September 2024, Black ownership was 46% and white was 74%. Historical discriminatory policies continue to impact current homeownership rates for Black families. Lower homeownership rates among Black families reflect the ongoing effects of systemic inequalities. Black neighborhoods often experience depressed property values compared to other areas due to the negative propaganda. Underfunded schools are a common issue in Black neighborhoods, like the one on the right, limiting educational opportunities. Having limited access to resources perpetuates economic disparities in Black communities. These factors collectively contribute to systemic economic inequality. Inherited wealth, often accumulated through homeownership, provides significant financial advantages to subsequent generations. Homeownership has historically been a primary driver of wealth accumulation for many families. Disparities in access to homeownership have contributed to significant wealth gaps between different racial groups. These financial advantages perpetuated across generations, creating a cycle of wealth accumulation for some and disadvantage for others. Redlining's legacy continues to shape wealth distribution today. It influences how resources and opportunities are passed down through families. It also influences how resources and opportunities are passed down through communities. Understanding the history of redlining is essential for recognizing the systemic inequities. It has had long-lasting effects on housing, education, and wealth-building opportunities. Systemic inequities in housing, education, and wealth building persist due to the historical practice of redlining. Promoting fairness and justice in housing and economic opportunities is essential for an equitable society. Addressing the lasting effects of redlining is a necessary step toward achieving fairness and justice. Equitable access to housing and economic opportunities helps mitigate the consequences of discriminatory practices. Equal opportunity in housing fosters wealth creation and intergenerational transfer of opportunities. Increased homeownership rates correlate with greater economic stability and community development. Societal benefits arise from enhanced economic activity and reduced social inequality through equal access to housing. Fair housing practices contribute to a more equitable distribution of resources and opportunities across all demographics. Redlining established invisible lines that continue to influence resource and opportunity access across communities. These invisible lines have a lasting impact on community development and economic growth, like the houses on the left side of the screen. Redlining policies shaped unequal access to housing, education, and healthcare. Its legacy contributes to show disparities in wealth accumulation and social mobility. Understanding the history of redlining is crucial for creating a fairer future for all families. Addressing the impacts of redlining involves dismantling systemic barriers to opportunity. Erasing its lines promotes equitable access to housing, education, and economic resources. It may not give Black people the wealth they missed out on, but it's a start for the next generation. A fairer future requires proactive policies and community-led initiatives to overcome historical injustices. With fair opportunity, it allows individuals to contribute to a more prosperous and equitable society. By having equitable access to resources, it ensures everyone has a chance to improve their circumstances and have a piece of the American dream. Collective progress is only achieved when all members of society have the opportunity to thrive. If you like this story, please like and subscribe for more history stories like this.